arguing and directing both the prosecutors and the defense on how they should frame questions even. And in keeping pictures of all of this, these extravagant closets full of clothes, closetfuls, I should say, of clothes, in keeping those pictures out of evidence so the jury doesn't see them, how damaging is that to the prosecutor's attempt to put some, visual elements together as well as just these data points?
He's tough. I've tried in front of Judge Ellis, and he seems to get a special flair out of really pushing on the prosecution. I don't think it's the case, however, Andrea, that they'll see none of these. Many of them were admitted. He refused to have them published, which is to say passed along to the jury, but the jury in the Eastern District of Virginia will see them when they're deliberating. But how damaging? A little bit of flavor, but look, I think overall prosecution is a storyteller's art, and they are definitely being able to pursue their story in broad strokes this week. And in particular, I think Heather Washkoon, who Julia mentioned, emerged as kind of a nominee for Best Supporting Actress yesterday. Not that she's acting, but she was a devastating witness, I think. Credible, position of trust, sees everything, and really buried him with the bookkeeping details. So we've had to date setting the stage of the Ukraine, then the ostrich jacket, and now all the bookkeeping stuff. Even without the pictures, it's all going in very well. They'll see many of the pictures anyway later, and I think the stage is now set for Rick Gates to come forward and tie things up, probably no later than early next week.
And Robin Givhan, from your article in the Post, you wrote, a man should not be prosecuted for his fashion choices, although in some cases maybe they should, but those choices do say a lot about whom the man believes himself to be. Manafort wasn't interested in bespoke fashion as a public statement of his style acumen. He wasn't buying designer brands as proof of tribal membership. He wasn't hunting down elusive products as testament to his cultural cachet. For him, fashion is akin to a stack of monopoly money. It's about accumulation, about not just having the most stuff, but the most expensive stuff. And that goes to his landscaping and everything else that he does. And what's so remarkable is after the bookkeeper testified that the bottom had fallen out and they owed more than $1 million, he was still living at that level.
Yeah, I mean, one of the things that I think that the judge seemed to understand is that when people are buying this kind of merchandise, as the fashion industry well knows, it's not just about buying a jacket or a suit or an overcoat. It's really about creating a sort of personal public identity. And I think that's what we're really seeing here. It's not just about labels and brands. It's about identity.
And finally, Harry, when we talk about this trial, we have to also remember that there is an undercurrent here, as we've been talking about it all week. It's not about Russia, it's not about the campaign, but it's showing how much he was in hock to the Russian oligarchs. And even though the judge said you can't use the term oligarch in the courtroom, that is, of course, in the back of the jurors' minds, right?
Well, presumably, but it certainly should be. I mean, back to Heather Washkoon. She testified yesterday that while he is the campaign manager, they're losing hundreds of thousands of dollars a month. They can't pay health insurance. He's got over $1 million in credit card bills. It paints an absolute portrait of financial desperation. And, you've got a financially desperate guy running the campaign of a major political party. It's a recipe for political disaster.
Thanks so much, Robin. Thank you for your fashion turn and your great analysis today. And Julia, of course, and Harry Littman. Great weekend all. Thanks. And coming up, full court press. The president intensifying his attacks on the media. Has he gone too far? You're watching Andrea Mitchell Reports only on MSNBC.
Fidelity is redefining value for investors. Introducing zero account fees for self-directed brokerage accounts and zero minimums to open an account. We have Fidelity mutual funds with zero minimum investment. And now Fidelity has 2 index funds with a 0 expense ratio. Because when you invest with Fidelity, All those zeros really add up.
You thought that bandage would protect me? See the new skin over there? How could you not know? It's the flexible liquid bandage. It seals out bad stuff like water and dirt. Hey, there's a spray, too.
New skin. Apply, seal, heal. If you're turning 65, you're probably learning about Medicare and supplemental insurance. Medicare is great, but it doesn't cover everything. Only about 80% of your Part B Medicare costs, which means you may have to pay for the rest. That's where Medicare supplement insurance comes in, to help pay for some of what Medicare doesn't. Learn how an AARP Medicare supplement insurance plan, insured by United Healthcare Insurance Company, might be the right choice for you. A free decision guide is a great place to start. Call today to request yours. So, what makes an AARP Medicare supplement plan unique? Well, these are the only Medicare supplement plans endorsed by AARP. And that's because they meet AARP's high standards of quality and service. You're also getting the great features that any Medicare supplement plan provides. For example, with any Medicare supplement plan, you may choose any doctor or hospital that accepts Medicare patients. You can even visit a specialist. With this type of plan, there are no networks or referrals needed. Also, a Medicare supplement plan goes with you when you travel anywhere in the U.S. A free decision guide will provide a breakdown of AARP Medicare supplement plans and help you determine the plan that works best for your needs and budget. Call today to request yours. Let's recap. There are 3 key things you should keep in mind. 1. If you're turning 65, you may be eligible for Medicare, but it only covers about 80% of your Medicare Part B costs. A Medicare supplement plan may help pay for some of the rest. 2. This type of plan allows you to keep your doctor, as long as he or she accepts Medicare patients. And 3. These are the only Medicare supplement plans endorsed by AARP. Learn more about why you should choose an AARP Medicare supplement plan. Call today for a free guide.
Hi, I'm Joan London. Today's senior living communities have never been better, with amazing amenities like movie theaters, exercise rooms and swimming pools, public cafes, bars and bistros, even pet care services. And there's never been an easier way to get great advice. A Place for Mom is a free service that pairs you with a local advisor to help you sort through your options and find the perfect place. A Place for Mom. You know your family, we know senior living. Together we'll make the right choice.
There's an app that lets you order from all your favorite local restaurants. So you can order this, or even this. Order from over 80,000 restaurants nationwide, right to your door. Grubhub, restaurants you love, delivered.
A few days ago, I called the fake news the enemy of the people, and they are. They are the enemy of the people.
The press, honestly, is out of control. The level of dishonesty is out of control.
Just stick with us. Don't believe the crap you see from these people, the fake news.
They can make anything bad because they are the fake, disgusting news.
The fake, disgusting news. That was the President of the United States last night to a crowd in Pennsylvania, using the press again as a foil to whip up the crowd at that campaign rally in Wilkes-Barre. On the same day that his own daughter, Ivanka, said she disagrees with her father, calling the press the enemy of the people. She said she would not do that herself. Let's get the inside scoop from a pair of reporters who are well experienced in those attacks at rallies during the campaign and ever since. Ashley Parker, White House reporter at the Washington Post and an MSNBC political analyst and a Pulitzer Prize winner, and Jeremy Peters, a reporter with the New York Times and an MSNBC contributor, both. Ashley, watching that last night, it really does come to mind that this is his main foil in the midterm elections.
It sure is, and this has been his foil since really the very beginning when he started his campaign. And what's interesting as someone who has traveled and been at a lot of those rallies is the mood can kind of differ. There are some rallies where he sort of attacks the media as a foil with a kind of hard edge of menace, and it can feel a little dangerous or uneasy or unsafe. As last night he was clearly very agitated. He kept on returning to the media more frequently than he has in recent weeks, especially at a rally, but he did it in a way that was sort of a a little bit shticky, a little bit part of the Trump show, and so the audience there, they played their part, they did their cameo, they booed us and they jeered us, but they didn't seem particularly angry. They were sort of smiling as they booed us, and so there is some element where it's part of a show, and then there's some element in different moments when he's really angry, when it seems much more like he's really trying to incite the crowd against the media.
Well, the anger levels are hard to predict, so it raises the question, first of all, how safe is it for the media? Sarah Sanders yesterday, under intensive questioning from Jim Acosta, who's a frequent target and antagonist back and forth with the president, raising the question about the enemy of the people, quote, after Ivanka Trump had said she disagreed with that. And Sarah Sanders refused repeated attempts to pin her down, and she wouldn't say that she disagrees. She basically said that she works for the president. So Mike Murphy, a Republican strategist, last night had a modest proposal as to what the media should do going forward.
Cover it with a full reporter. I don't think there's any need to put on the show now that, frankly, the president uses to reinforce his base supporters where the media is very unpopular. So it's good box office for Trump. The question is the media more interested in that or the journalistic realities of this, which is, I think, they're being used and, frankly, abused.
I'm not saying don't cover him. I'm not saying that his tweets aren't news. They're public records, for instance, and that the rallies aren't newsworthy. Certainly on North Korea, on Russia, and other things, they certainly reinforce many themes that we have to cover. But Ashley and Jeremy, should we be there in force so that he looks out, as he said, you know, it could be the Academy Awards, looking at all these cameras? Why not pool it? Treat it like an Oval Office event.
Yeah, I think that the level of hostility with which he's treated the media has, as Ashley pointed out, certainly escalated in recent weeks. And this phrase, enemy of the people, while he's been using it for about a year and a half now, is especially insidious. Because let's just go over the history of where that phrase comes from. I mean, leaders like Stalin have used this phrase.
It comes from Joseph Stalin.
Exactly. Don't you dare question my authority. Now, what Trump's doing is something slightly different. He's basically saying, those people who dare to criticize me are criticizing you. They are not just our political opponents. They are enemies. They are bad people. They are exercising bad faith. And that includes not just the media, but anybody who dares to question or really investigate what Donald Trump is doing, whether that's Bob Mueller or whether that's the media.
And Ashley, it does undercut not only our core values and our Constitution and the First Amendment, but a long-standing tradition of secretaries of state and presidents speaking out for a free press, even when they have been angry at the press. Certainly Bill Clinton was, in my own experience, Jimmy Carter at times, certainly W. Bush, as well as, with perhaps better reason, the Bush the father angry, and Ronald Reagan angry at us. But they always had news conferences, had organized interactions with the press, not just off-the-cuff interactions when they chose to, and they never barred reporters from publicly coverable events, as this president has.
That's right. Relationships with other presidents, other politicians have certainly gotten antagonistic, but we haven't seen anything like this. The president is not someone, even when he goes abroad, who goes abroad to necessarily try to export democratic or American values there. And the irony, as you point out, of the president really going after the media and really not standing up for them or even the First Amendment is that he, more than any modern politician, is a creation of the media. In a lot of ways, President Trump doesn't exist without the media. So as much as he attacks us and recently barred a reporter from attending an event, he looks back in the crowd and he is desperate to see all those cameras pointing at him and all those red lights on and all of those headlines. And a lot of his behavior in office is reflective of the media coverage.
Well, not such a bad idea from Mike Murphy. At least worth pursuing. Thank you so much, Ashley. Thanks for being out there for us, and Jeremy, of course, as well. And coming up, controversial praise. An African-American pastor calling President Trump, quote, the most pro-black president in his lifetime. Really? We'll get reaction from the head of the National Urban League coming up next. Stay with us.
Hi, Michelle. Thanks for the meeting last week. It was helpful to see our financial picture. When you asked what I'm doing to take care of myself, I didn't have much of an answer. It hasn't been easy to find the time since Michael's been gone. But the question was a good one. So today, I'm starting something for me.
Your digestive system has billions of bacteria, but life can throw them off balance. Realign yourself with Align Probiotic. And try new Align gummies with prebiotics and probiotics to help support digestive health. If you're only hungry for a slice of apple pie, why buy the whole pie? And you certainly wouldn't want to pay for an all-you-can-eat buffet. So if you don't use your cell phone that much, why get charged for a plan that's too big, or even an unlimited plan? Luckily, there's still a wireless company that shares your values. Welcome to Consumer Cellular. Our average customer pays about $25 a month for everything they need. Many pay even less, as plans start at just $15 a month. You'll get a straightforward bill that's easy to understand, with no surprises, and all the attention you deserve from our friendly customer service team. No wonder Consumer Cellular has received the J.D. Power Award for highest customer service 4 times in a row. Plus, if you're an AARP member, you'll receive special discounts. It's easy to switch. You can even keep your phone and your number. So stop paying for more than you need and start your 30-day risk-free trial today. Call 1-800-393-3961. Go online or visit a Target store today.
We needed to sell our home, and there was a lot of money on the line. We needed an agent who knew what they were doing. Luckily, we found HomeLight. HomeLight showed us the best agents in our neighborhood based on their actual track record. Who sells quickly? Who sells for top dollar? In the end, we went with Ben. Ben sold our house in just 2 weeks for $55,000 over asking. There's no question. When it's time to sell, the place to go is HomeLight. Join the thousands of people who have sold their home by going to HomeLight.com.
From the very beginning, it was always our singular focus, a distinct determination to do whatever it takes, use every possible resource to fight cancer, and never lose sight of the patients we're fighting for. Our cancer treatment specialists share the same vision. Experts from all over the world working closely together to deliver truly personalized cancer care. Specialists focused on treating cancer using advanced technologies and more precise treatments than before. Working as hard as we can, doing all that we can for everyone who comes through our doors. This is Cancer Treatment Centers of America, and these are the specialists we're proud to call our own. Treating cancer isn't one thing we do, it's the only thing we do. Expert medicine works here. Learn more at cancercenter.com. Cancer Treatment Centers of America. Appointments available now.
So you have your headphones, chair, and your laptop, 24/7 tech support.
Yep, these guys. I think he might need some support.
Yes.
Start them off right with the school supplies they need at low prices all summer long. Save $200 on this Dell laptop at Office Depot Office Max.
He wasn't doing much anyway.
This is probably the most proactive administration regarding urban America and the faith-based community in my lifetime. And I'll be 60 years old. To be honest, this is probably going to be, and I'm going to say this at this table, the most pro-black president
It's for people
that we've had
who
in our
are really
lifetime.
aggressive, but
That's
they're more
Pastor
likely
Darrell
to
Scott.
die.
He's at the White House, of course. He's the
Muslim
CEO of President Trump's National Diversity Coalition, saying Donald Trump is more pro-black in his policies than the nation's only black president, Barack Obama. Joining me now is Mark Morial, the president and CEO of the National Urban League, at their conference in Columbus, Ohio. Hey, it's great to see you again.
Great to be with you.
Well, tell me what policies that you would single out from this administration have been so pro-black.
So first of all, let me just say to you, Andrea, happy 40 years. And congratulations on 40 great years at NBC.
Thanks a lot.
And when I heard the pastor, I wondered if the pastor's been living on Saturn, Uranus, or Neptune, because that deserved the fake news Academy Award, because it's such a statement of fact and reality. How about Lyndon Baines Johnson, Civil Rights Act, Voting Rights Act, appointing Thurgood Marshall and Robert Weaver to the Supreme Court and the cabinet.
Yeah, just crouch, yes, yeah.
Record number of African American cabinet appointments
It's not that many good places.
important work
It's not good
in
places
helping to revitalize urban America. Barack Obama putting the first African American in the Attorney General's chair. Even George W. Bush had 2 black secretaries of state. It's really not the kind of agitation that even deserves any sort of meaningful or legitimate response because it's such a fake news narrative.
And I would also point out George W. Bush and what he did to try to combat HIV/AIDS in Africa, and the whole PEPFAR program was all George Bush, working with Bono and several other advocacy groups. It's just pretty astounding given the impact on health care now. These proposals to strip down affordable health care and eliminate pre-existing conditions. Who's that going to hurt? The least empowered among us. And clean water, clean air. I mean, if you look at all the deregulation, who is most impacted? But the people in urban communities, many of whom are...
Many of these retrenchments, whether it's education or justice,
I know. They're just powerful. I know. I've played Dota before.
To reverse gains that were made under the Obama years. The Affordable Care Act narrowed health disparities in America in a significant way. We've had stronger enforcement of civil rights laws. Any retrenchment on that's not good public policy for urban communities and communities of color. So loud accusations, loud, extravagant, if you will, exaggerations
if you don't mind me asking, kid, how old are you?
Cloud in the minds of intelligent, thinking Americans the real facts of the matter in terms of what we're facing today, but also the tremendous contributions of prior presidents.
And I just want to also point out one quick thing. The Russia propaganda efforts on Facebook and others to create more divisions, which started with Black Lives Matter and Charlottesville and other racially motivated issues, Ferguson even before 2016.
Let me say this. Those efforts by Russia are despicable. They're hateful. Those involved in it, those who aided it, those who abetted it, should be prosecuted to the full extent of the law. I expect American law enforcement to shut Russia's interference down, to use every resource we have. Because it could be Russia today, another set of countries tomorrow. Get your hands off of American democracy. Stop trying to manipulate the way we think. Stop trying to undermine this system that gives people a chance to elect their own leaders.
Thank you so much, Mark Morial, and we'll be right back.
Take out the vault cam in that room. Crap, I'm flashbanged.
It's time now for your business of the week. Chances are you have an email in your inbox right now powered by MailChimp.
Oh, dude, from that Dokey hole, dude.
What was once a side
did you guys get my friend request?
$500 million business.
I didn't
without
get it.
taking a dime of outside
Wait, what's your
we
name?
tell the story of this
What's your
email
name?
marketing giant this Sunday at 7:30 a.m. Eastern on MSNBC.
Sponsored by the powerful backing of American Express. Don't do business without it.
It's pretty
amazing out there.
There's nothing we could have done about it.
The world's full of more possibilities than ever before. And American Express has your back every step of the way. Whether it's the comfort of knowing help is just a call away with Global Assist, or getting financing to fund your business. No one has your back like American Express. So wherever you go, we're right there with you. The powerful backing of American Express. Don't do business without it. Don't live life without it.
Roman. For the first time ever, you can get ED meds prescribed online shipped discreetly to your door. No more waiting rooms, awkward talks, or lines at the pharmacy. Get your first month free at GetRoman.com/TV.
Do you have a life insurance policy you no longer need or can't afford? Now you can sell your policy for an immediate payment.
We bought life insurance when our kids were young to protect their future.
Our youngest just turned 40. We no longer needed the coverage.
That got us to thinking about letting our policy go. So I did some research and called Coventry Direct.
I'm still here.
I learned that you could sell all or part of a life insurance policy, even a term life policy. Turns out, people have been selling policies like ours for the past 15 years. Who knew?
They're all the way down, I think.
Now we have money to help with the medical bills.
And to add to our retirement. Yeah, they are.
If you have $100,000 or more of life insurance, you may be a candidate to sell your policy. Call 1-800-461-2600 or visit CoventryDirect.com. 1-800-461-2600.
I hate the disconnecting of the drone. Like, it can get
redefining insurance.
Oh, look. Another anti-wrinkle cream in no hurry to make anything happen.
Huh?
Neutrogena Rapid Wrinkle Repair works in just 1 week. The fastest retinol formula to visibly reduce wrinkles. Neutrogena.
Every remaining 2018 in stock must be sold during our year-end model sale at Team Nissan.
I'm going in.
2018 Nissan Sentra.
Económica.
Just $14,988. Or save big on the fierce Nissan Titan truck. Bottom line, up to $12,000 off. It's the bottom line year-end model sale at the global award-winning Best of the Best Team Nissan. Rush Team Nissan now.
You know why God made snakes before lawyers? He needed the practice. Gainful employment. I'm a lawyer again.
Why don't you stop running the game on me and just... Okay, no, not yourself. Okay, step in.
I'm going in.
Fair? Let's talk about fair.
I decide what it deserves.
Sorry, I dropped it.
Wish me luck.
He won't drop it yet.
They took down his nitro.
And thanks for being with us. Eamon Mohiuddin will take over the coverage in New York. Hi, Eamon.
Hey, Andrew. Thank you very much for that. Good afternoon, everyone from MSNBC headquarters here in New York. I'm Eamon Mohiuddin in for my friend Craig Melvin. Mixed messages when it comes to the Trump administration's stance on Russia's attack on our election. It depends really on who you ask. So, who do you believe, the president or his people? And if there's no clear message, how do you stop Russia from doing it again? Plus, you fix it. The Trump administration created a policy that separated children from their parents at the border. Now, they want to put the work of reuniting the families back on somebody else's plate. Also, midterm risk. Both parties are gaming out their midterm strategies. For Republican voters, do the letters D.C. matter more than GOP? And for the Democrats, do calls for impeachment actually hurt more than help? All right, so President Trump may well undercut his administration's clearest message yet that Russia tried to undermine the 2016 election and that those efforts to disrupt the election process continue till today. The president is in New Jersey today, beginning with what the White House calls a working vacation. The administration sent out the nation's top national security officials yesterday to state emphatically that attempts to undermine the electoral process in this country were rampant back in 2016 and that they are continuing till today.
Our democracy itself is in the crosshairs. Free and fair elections are the cornerstone of our democracy, and it has become clear that they are the target of our adversaries.
Our focus here today is simply to tell the American people we acknowledge the threat. It is real, it is continuing, and we're doing everything we can to have a legitimate election that the American people can have trust in.
Russia attempted to interfere with the last election and continues to engage in malign influence operations to this day. This is a threat we need to take extremely seriously and to tackle and respond to with fierce determination and focus.
All right, but at a campaign rally in Wilkes-Barre, Pennsylvania last night, President Trump went right back to his rhetorical playbook.
In Helsinki, I had a great meeting with Putin. We discussed everything. I had a great meeting. Now we're being hindered by the Russian hoax. It's a hoax, okay? I'll tell you what, Russia's very unhappy that Trump won, that I can tell you. But I got along great with Putin.
All right, NBC's Kristen Welker is at the White House for us this afternoon. Kristen, great to have you with us. Let's talk a little bit about this mixed messaging that we got yesterday from the White House. On one hand, you're hearing from officials that there is a real threat coming from Russia. The elections are being undermined. But at the same time, the president yesterday, once again, going back to his playbook and calling it a hoax. Is there a sense, is there a feeling that the president has really undercut the message sent by his national security team?
Well, Eamon, great to be with you. His top officials here at the White House are digging in, defending the messaging, but it is striking. It was really unprecedented yesterday, Eamon, that you had those national security officials come to the podium and essentially say to reporters there, to the American public, we're on top of this crisis. We're taking it very seriously. We're not going to let Russia meddle in the 2018 midterm elections. But then, of course, President Trump out on the stump, as you pointed out, again referring to the Russia investigation as a hoax, saying he got along great with Putin, saying that Russia's not happy that he won. By the way, Putin said during that joint press conference with President Trump that he did want Trump to win. So I pressed one of President Trump's top advisors here, Mercedes Schlapp, on this apparent mixed messaging, and she defended it. Take a listen.
Not at all. I think that we've made it very clear. The president last May in 2017, directed the administration to be tough and strengthen and review cybersecurity measures. We want to make sure that every vote is cherished, that we're ensuring that the states have what they need to ensure that there's no foreign influence in this election. President Trump has been tougher on this issue than any previous administration.
Are you concerned, though, that it sends a mixed message to Russia?
No, not at all. Not at all. The only one that's making this a mixed message is the media.
So that's the bottom line here, Eamon. And in terms of what the administration is doing, they point to the fact that they have enacted new sanctions against Russia, including sanctions against a Russian bank today, which the administration says is essentially violating what it wants to see with North Korea. But also they're working with state and local governments to make sure they say that there isn't meddling in the 2016 election, or the 2018 election, I should say. And so they say that they are on top of this issue. By the way, we do know that some lawmakers have already been targeted, including Claire McCaskill, unsuccessfully, according to that senator. Now, President Trump remains at Bedminster. He is beginning his working vacation. So far, we haven't heard from him on Twitter, which is unusual. So we are watching our Twitter feeds very closely, Eamon, to see if he weighs in on this at all today.
Kristen, really quickly, I know you're at the White House day in and day out. How unusual was it yesterday to see 5 of these top intelligence security chiefs across the government agencies, respective government agencies, speaking, and the president, not being with them there at the White House, and some speculation as to whether or not or how much the president knew that these individuals were in fact going to be making this specific statement? How much would he have been known in advance of the exact wording that came out of these officials?
Well, the administration says it was the president's idea. He very much wanted them to come out, but it's unprecedented, Amy. We've never seen anything like it. And it was clearly aimed at sending a message to the American people that they are taking this problem very seriously. But critics point to that and they say, we are less than 100 days before the midterms. Why didn't this briefing happen several months ago, if not a year ago?
Yeah,
Amen.
Indeed, a valid question. All right, NBC's Kristen Walker live for us at the White House. Thank you very much, Kristen. Let's bring in NBC News national political reporter Jonathan Allen, Christopher Painter, former assistant U.S. attorney and former senior director for cybersecurity at the White House, and former acting CI director trying to undermine democracy, while Trump tells them it's all political chicanery. So who are people to believe here, the president or the country's top experts and officials in this matter?
Well, I think in terms of the mechanics of all of this, of the Russians influencing the 2016 election and attempting to do so again in 2018, basically hacking our democracy, you have to go with the intelligence professionals, the national security professionals here. You've seen this across 2 administrations. The president's argument that this is all a hoax is a political argument. It's not one based on the facts. It's not one that is based on any deep research he's done into the intelligence. So, you know, when you see those 2 things, we should believe, as those officials said, there is a serious threat from Russia in this election as there was in the last election. The president yesterday, again going with the hoax, look, his crowd, his base, you know, at this rally in Wilkes-Barre, and I was there last night, they want to hear that. They want to hear that what he's doing is being trying to have diplomacy with Russia and trying to make a better world. And they want to hear that his election was completely credible because they all believed in it. And he's obviously worried about the legitimacy of his own election over the course of time. And he had said both things before, both that the Russians interfered and that he believes Vladimir Putin when Putin says that he didn't interfere.
security team, and whether or not on one hand doing this for purely theatrical or optical reasons when we see what the president is saying to his base out there on the campaign style rallies that we saw last night, and then the messaging that is coming out we saw earlier in the day. Is the White House taking the Russia threat seriously?
So I think there are people in the administration who are doing a lot of good work. I welcome the conference yesterday, although, as people said, that conference could have and should have happened over a year ago, but better late than never, and there seems to be some good initiatives. However, if the president himself is undercutting that message, you have a conference like that for two purposes. One, to raise awareness so that the American public is really taking this seriously, and two, to send a message to Putin and to send a message to Russia that this activity is unacceptable, and if he does it again, there'll be consequences. That deterrent effect is completely undercut by the president's statements, either not saying anything at all, which he's done in the past, or saying statements like he did last night and he's done throughout this period, where he undercuts...
Don't kill the rook, he's a friendly.
I look at that, and I say, you know what? I can bear the costs that are being imposed on me. The messaging is mixed. The president is not raising this in a consistent way. I'll do it again.
So, Director McLaughlin, let me pick up on that point that Chris just raised, that the president's message is important. Explain to us, as somebody who ran a massive and significant intelligence agency, why the president's message is sometimes more important than, let's say, the specific order. Because what if he is behind closed doors, as we heard yesterday from those officials say the president has directed us to do X, Y, and Z? Why should we then be so concerned with what he's saying in public?
Well, first, Damon, we don't know exactly what the president said to get that conference underway. And I think the main problem, thinking back to my own experience, is that within the executive branch, I know all of these national security officials. I'm sure that individually they are doing the best they can and doing what their agencies can do. But unless you have direct public direction and mobilization from the president, the executive branch does not move as vigorously as it can and bringing all the power of the federal government to bear. So what's lacking here is actually a coordinating mechanism to pull together in a powerful way what all of these agencies and officials can do. And I think we're witnessing something that is, in my 40 years in government here,
and coordinate all these efforts. You'll recall that National Security Advisor Bolton got rid of the cyber coordinator position at the White House, one that could bring a lot of these interagency efforts together. And it seems like they're doing good things, but unless it's unified, we're going to be really, I think, in a vulnerable position.
Director McLaughlin, really quickly, the Treasury Department announced today new sanctions against a Russian bank. I'm curious to get your thoughts. Is there any significance in this action other than the North Korea link and the Russia bank?
No, I think it's a good thing for them to do, and it once again reinforces the sense that there are two separate governments working here. The officials who carry out these steps, which are all well-advised, and the president, who seems to be giving a different message entirely and undercutting the effect of them. Putin will hear about the sanctions, but he'll also hear about the president saying what he said. And I've been told by Russians that sometimes these sanctions actually strengthen Putin because he's the only person in Russia who can protect people from the effects of them.
All right, John Powell, I'm going to ask you to stick around for us. Christopher Painter and Director John McLaughlin, thank you both, gentlemen, for joining us this afternoon. All right, you fix it. How the Trump administration wants to hand off the responsibility of reuniting children separated from their parents at the border. Plus, midterm risk, a new message emerging for D.C. Republicans at home and campaigning. GOP voters just might not be that into you. And follow the money. Former Trump campaign chairman Paul Manafort's accountants opened the books at his trial.
Dear foremothers, your society was led by a woman who governed thousands, commanded armies, yielded to no one. When I found you in my DNA, I learned where my strength comes from. My name is Courtney McKinney, and this is my Ancestry DNA story.
Now, with 2 times more geographic detail than other DNA tests. Order your kit at AncestryDNA.com.
At Farmers, we've seen almost everything, so we know how to cover almost anything, even vengeful vermin. Not so cute when they're angry. And we covered it. Talk to Farmers. We know a thing or two because we've seen a thing or two.
We are farmers. Bum, 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 bum.
If you keep on eating, we'll keep it coming. All you can eat riblets and tenders at Applebee's. Now that's eating good in the neighborhood.
Sandals. At last, an all-inclusive that truly includes it all.
The time of my life. Do it all again. Do it all again.
Sandals, the world's only 5-star luxury included resorts. Save up to 65%. Call 1-800-SANDALS.
Oh, look. Another anti-wrinkle cream in no hurry to make anything happen. Neutrogena Rapid Wrinkle Repair works in just 1 week with the fastest retinol formula to visibly reduce wrinkles. Neutrogena.
Every remaining 2018 in stock must be sold during our bottom line year-end model sale at Team Nissan. Like the award-winning 2018 Nissan Sentra.
Económica.
Just $14,988. Or save big on the fierce Nissan Titan truck. Bottom line, up to $12,000 off. It's the bottom line year-end model sale at the global award-winning Best of the Best Team Nissan. Rush to Team Nissan now.
We've got exciting news at North Hollywood Toyota. We've teamed up with Kelley Blue Book, and we're now your trade-in headquarters. Get an instant cash or trade-in offer based on Kelley Blue Book values right inside our dealership. Best part is, it's free.
Like you said, it's free.
Get an instant Kelley Blue Book quote online today at NorthHollywoodToyota.com.
So trade in your car today and drive away in a brand new Toyota. North Hollywood Toyota. Let's go places.
Morning Joe speaks truth to power. He is destroying the Republican Party for years to come with access to the people who matter.
Step up. It's not about your dad. It's about the country.
From the Senate floor.
Why isn't there more of a sense of urgency about Puerto Rico?
To the Oval Office.
You can't be a counselor to the president and not comment.
Through every hallway in the Beltway. I said America will be strong. We will survive this. Morning Joe, weekdays 6 to 9 on MSNBC.
All right, in just a few hours, the U.S. government will go to court with the ACLU about the children separated from their families at the border. The government wants the ACLU to take over the work of reuniting the remaining 572 children currently in government custody with their parents. Joining me now is the MSNBC correspondent who's been following the story since the very beginning, Jacob Soboroff. Jacob, great to have you with us. It's kind of hard to wrap my head around a little bit. I'm sure others are as well. But what is the government's argument that it's now up to the ACLU that should be responsible for reuniting these families?
This has been, Eamon, a slow motion train wreck of a disaster, and it continues to sort of amaze and astonish at every turn. The government, which of course systematically separated these children from their parents in a way that we have never seen before, as a deterrent, it was the stated goal by John Kelly and other members of this administration, is now saying the ACLU
who wants to and has sued them to reunite every one of the 2,551 kids separated from their parents should be responsible for it, basically because they want it to happen. I mean, it's almost an impossible thing to understand. The government is the one that has been ordered by a judge to do these reunifications, and now they're saying because the ACLU and other NGOs are on the ground and they have the resources to do so, they should be the ones to do it. We'll help them out in certain ways by providing certain information, but they should essentially take the lead.
Okay, so there are about 572 kids that remain in government custody. And so let's put aside the politics for a moment. Regardless of whose responsibility it is, which it clearly falls on the shoulders of the government that created this in the first place, is there actually a plan for how to reunify these remaining children?
No, there isn't. And that's what's sort of coming together right now in court, Eamon. I was just looking over some of the things that both the defendants and the plaintiffs are talking about amongst themselves that they want to be sharing between each other in order to track down these 572. And by the way, I should remind everybody, 410 of the 572 are parents who have already been deported. They're already outside the United States, and they were deported before it was possible for them to be reunited with their children. So we're talking about simple stuff. Phone number of a parent, birth certificates of children. If the child or parent speaks an indigenous language, what language do the parent and child both speak? It's stuff that the government, you would think, would have kept track of as they took these kids away from their parents, but there is no centralized database. There was no centralized database. It was clear all along, and now here we are months after the separations, and they still don't have it figured out.
So I know that the ACLU says that the administration is sitting on information that will allow the parties to find these parents. What kind of information do you think the ACLU was referencing there that could facilitate this reunification?
Well, we know, actually, and it's somewhat complicated, but they're called A numbers. A numbers are given to every person that's apprehended by the Border Patrol along the southern border. In fact, anybody that's apprehended by the Border Patrol anywhere in the country. And they say that these A numbers and the A files associated with them contain a treasure trove of information that will make tracking down these people, particularly outside the country, in order to reunite them, far easier. And in this latest court filing, the government says we don't think it's necessary to give over the A files because there's a whole nother list of information that the ACLU wants, and if we share that stuff, why do we need to give over the A files? It's bickering about information when, remember, we're talking about 572 kids that are still sitting in U.S. government custody after being systematically taken away from their parents and held by the U.S. government. I mean, at the end of the day, that is what it's about. 572 kids still in the custody of the U.S. government.
Yeah, absolutely. Jacob, I know you've been following the story from the very beginning. You've been doing incredible work. What are you going to be looking for at this hearing? What are you watching going forward?
Well, we have to hear what the judge says. Basically, the judge has reprimanded both the Trump administration for not taking this seriously enough, and the ACLU, frankly, when I was in court last Friday down in San Diego, for saying, do you really need all this information in order to reunify all these kids with their parents? It's going to be pretty critical to see what the judge says today as far as this proposal by the government, and if he sort of claps back at them, for lack of a better term, for this proposal to say, hey, ACLU, why don't you guys take the lead?
All right, we know you're going to stay on top of this story. Keep up the excellent reporting, Jacob. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Anna.
All right, just a few hours ago, the U.S. government deported the wife of an Iraq war veteran, putting her on a plane and sending her to Mexico. Alejandra Juarez has lived in the United States for 21 years after crossing the southern border illegally when she was 18 years old. She says that she thinks the decision to come here back then saved her life as an escape from the violence she faced at home. Well, Juarez has two daughters. The older one will now stay in Florida with her father, and Juarez's husband, I should say. The younger one will move to Mexico to be with her mother. Juarez had a message for other military families.
They're breaking my family apart. They don't care that he said his country 3 times. So, before you enlist in the military, think it twice. Before you marry an immigrant, think it twice. Think it if it's really worth for you to save this country. Because look how they treated me.
Juarez's family says they plan to keep fighting and keep praying. Another GOP candidate learning the hard way why support from the White House is so crucial to win a primary. But is the president's endorsement going to be as valuable in the general election? How Republicans will walk a fine line with their president.
Hate is on the rise in America.
I've dedicated my life to pulling people out of hate. I know how these people think, because I used to be one of them.
Still nervous about finding a new apartment?
Yeah, but popping these things really helps me. Relax. Please don't. I'm saving those for later.
At least you don't have to worry about renter's insurance. Just go to geico.com.
Geico helps with renter's insurance. It's good to know.
Been doing it for years.
It's really good to know. I'll check them out.
Get to know Geico and see how easy homeowners and renters insurance can be.
Nothing says summer like a beach trip. So let's promote our summer travel deal on choicehotels.com like this.
Surf shop.
Earn a $50 gift card when you stay just twice this summer.
Or, bada book, bada boom. Book now at choicehotels.com.
It's just not the same with back pain. Dones relieves back pain.
Wow.
Dones. We've had your back's back since way back. Now available in a cream.
If your moderate to severe ulcerative colitis or Crohn's symptoms are holding you back, and your current treatment hasn't worked well enough, it may be time for a change. Ask your doctor about Entyvio, the only biologic developed and approved just for UC and Crohn's. Entyvio works at the site of inflammation in the GI tract and is clinically proven to help many patients achieve both symptom relief and remission. Infusion and serious allergic reactions can happen during or after treatment. Entyvio may increase risk of infection, which can be serious. PML, a rare, serious, potentially fatal brain infection caused by a virus, may be possible. This condition has not been reported with Entyvio. Tell your doctor if you have an infection, experience frequent infections, or have flu-like symptoms or sores. Liver problems can occur with Entyvio. If your UC or Crohn's treatment isn't working for you, ask your gastroenterologist about Entyvio. Entyvio, relief and remission within reach.
If you've been turned down for a mortgage because of credit or tax return issues, Cash Call Mortgage now has credit and income-solving mortgages for people like you. Just call 855-890-CASH and we'll work with you to find a solution to your mortgage issues.
So you have your headphones, chair, and your laptop, 24/7 tech support.
Yep, these guys. I think he might need some support.
Yes.
Start them off right with the school supplies they need at low prices all summer long. Save $200 on this Dell laptop at Office Depot Office.
Every remaining 2018 in stock must be sold during our bottom line year-end model sale at Team Nissan. Like the award-winning 2018 Nissan Sentra.
Económica.
Just $14,988. Or save big on the fierce Nissan Titan truck. Bottom line, up to $12,000 off. It's the bottom line year-end model sale at the global award-winning Best of the Best Team Nissan. Rush to Team Nissan now.
Good on you, g'day. I'm the Kangaroo. And this is Walkabout Australia, where you'll meet your new best mates. G'day, Olivia. You'll come face to face with your fears, so you can spread your wings and fly. I meant that metaphorically. So join us at Walkabout Australia, where all paths lead to happiness.
Coca-Cola is proud to be the official beverage sponsor of the zoo and safari park.
All right, Republicans with primaries still to come may want to look to Tennessee for two big lessons. Experience in Washington could be a liability instead of an asset, and an endorsement from President Trump could push you over the top. Those are the big takeaways for Congresswoman Diane Black. She ran as a Trump Republican, though without a Trump endorsement, and came in third place in the governor's race, losing the primary by double digits to business executive Bill Lee last night. Dana Milbanks is a political columnist for the Washington Post, and Rick Tyler is a Republican strategist and co-founder of Foundry Strategies. He's also an MSNBC political analyst. Gentlemen, great to have both of you with us. Rick, let me begin with you. Congresswoman Black becomes an interesting nugget here. The fifth Republican lawmaker this primary season to lose a bid for a statewide office without President Trump's endorsement. So I guess that begs the question, how significant, how important is President Trump's endorsement in the primaries?
Well, I'd say it's pretty significant. The problem is it's a quagmire. I mean, I've seen a lot of Republicans running to gain Trump's endorsement, and then it's an argument between who's more loyal to Trump or who's going to help Trump with his "Make America Great again, agenda. But the problem is once you get out of the primary, if you do gain this endorsement, the Republican National Committee is now really the Republican National Cult. It doesn't have an ideological coherence, and therefore having a broader appeal becomes more and more difficult. So I think during the general election, these Republicans who won their party's nomination because of Trump's endorsement are going to find it increasingly difficult to appeal to a larger audience, which you'll need to win.
Yeah, I'm going to get to that point in a little bit because some are saying it's kind of like the kiss of death. You win in the primaries, but then it sets you up for failure in the general. But Dana, your colleague Amber Phillips wrote this today, which I thought was pretty interesting. It's not a coincidence that in the first election cycle since he became president, promising to drain the swamp and decrying the American political system as rigged, that nearly half a dozen of GOP lawmakers have lost their primaries for higher office. Are we seeing the beginning of a trend here, Dana? Does the fact that the president campaigned so hard on drain the swamp have a ripple effect on the GOP?
Well, it might have a ripple effect on the Republican Party. You have to understand that the president has tremendous leverage over Republican lawmakers because he may be struggling a bit in the polls, but he is Mr. Popularity compared to incumbent Republicans in Congress. They have 11% approval overall. Even Republicans, only 25% of Republicans approve of this Republican Congress. So I think the president's having a great deal of success now in this, in part because he's looking and seeing where the winner is, who's going to be winning these contests, and he tends to side with the winner. It clearly has a huge impact in these primaries, and Rick is right, it could be something of an albatross in a general election, probably not in states like South Dakota that are safely Republican states, but certainly we've seen that close to here in Virginia, that it is something of an albatross to carry that Trump endorsement in November.
All right, so let's talk about a general election. Congresswoman Marsha Blackburn won her race for the GOP Senate nomination. She's now going to face a moderate Democrat in the popular election, former Governor Phil Bredesen. Rick, as a strategist, how do you then position yourself from where you were in the primaries to then trying to win in the general against a moderate like Bredesen?
Well, look, Tennessee, I'm trying to recall the last time Tennessee, the Republicans didn't lose Tennessee, and so this should be a no-brainer, or not even a contest for the Republicans. They should win this outright, but now I believe it is going to be a close race, and I do think Bredesen, who's actually was a popular politician from Tennessee, is going to be able to make a case that this is a referendum on Trump, and that's all he'll need, because if the president is at even 40% in Tennessee, if you get everybody else, you're going to win pretty handily. And so I think you just go out every single day and make a case of how this would send a message that this is not the direction the country wants to go in.
Dana, let me play you this soundbite. This is from top Democratic donor Tom Steyer. He spoke at a progressive conference in New Orleans just yesterday. He made this pitch for impeaching President Trump. Take a listen.
You should join the movement of 5.5 million Americans who've had enough. Not just with Trump and Trumpism, but also by the attempt by Washington insiders to bury this uncomfortable truth that he needs to be removed from office.
All right, so on one hand, you've got him making this pitch for impeachment, and there's no doubt that Trumpism or anti-Trumpism has energized the Democratic base, has led a lot of people to predict a blue wave come this fall. But at the same time, is there a risk that by running on a campaign of impeachment that you, A, alienate folks, but at the same time also energize the red base, Trump voters, to come out and counter that?
I think there is a huge risk in doing this, because the problem here is that if there is going to be this blue wave, Democrats are going to have to win in districts that Trump won. These guys do not want to get on board with an impeachment plan. Now, look, everybody knows if you really want to impeach the president, the thing you need to do is elect a Democratic Congress. The problem with Tom Steyer putting forward this litmus test is it actually has the reverse effect and winds up putting Democrats who could be winning in November in jeopardy of losing.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see how all of this plays out. Dana Milbank and Rick Tyler, thank you both very much for joining us this afternoon.
Thanks, Andy.
Now, if the House, Senate, or even both flip from Republican to Democrat, the dynamics in Washington are going to change drastically, and you bet very quickly. The headlines of Politico's Playbook this morning really put it very accurately, saying what the White House should be worried about. We're going to talk a little bit about that now with Anna Palmer. She's the co-author of Politico's Playbook and its senior Washington correspondent. Anna, great to have you with us. So walk us through this prediction a little bit. Why are things going to change very quickly if, in fact, the House or the Senate potentially flip?
Yeah, I think what you would have is Democrats are going to be empowered to subpoena the White House agencies. There is a lot of scrutiny and Democrats calling on investigations, but they really don't have any power unless they control the chamber. And one thing to just really point out that's, I think, pretty stunning is if you look at the House Oversight Committee, the staff for Democrats would double if they took the majority. So you're looking at dozens of investigators and people that are looking at paper trails. And yes, of course, there's impeachment, but this is going to be everything from tax, the president's taxes to what each agency was doing to, whether the manifest on Air Force One.
Yeah, I wanted to actually ask you about that because you bring up an interesting point. When Congressman Darrell Issa chaired the House Oversight Committee back in 2010, 2011, he investigated everything from bank bailouts to corruption in Afghanistan. In fact, BuzzFeed writes that Democrats want an investigation into Trump's Air Force One tours. So, and that's just like one very simple, basic example. How eager are Democrats to investigate the president? And what kind of investigations are we going to see, from like the most significant to the most frivolous?
I think there is absolute pent-up energy and frustration with how this White House has worked and how they have done everything on, overturning the EPA rules. So I think you're really going to see things that maybe aren't as sexy, but could have really big implications in terms of what's happening with Obamacare. How are those decisions getting made? How are industry and different companies, using this administration to get their agenda passed? Those types of things can add a lot of stickiness with the electorate, and it certainly would give Democrats, something to look at for 2020 at saying this is a corrupt Congress. It's not just going to be Mueller and Russia, but that could also probably be one of the bigger areas as well.
Let's go back to this issue of impeachment and whether or not that makes sense for Democratic candidates to run on it. We know that the House Minority Leader, Nancy Pelosi, she's been advising Democrats against talking of impeachment on the campaign trail against President Trump. Are we likely to see an escalation of that rhetoric if, in fact, Democrats win control of either chamber in the Congress?
Absolutely. I think certainly Nancy Pelosi and a lot of senior Democrats have been saying to candidates out on the trail and even to some of their colleagues who've really gotten on that bandwagon to say, hey, let's pump the brakes. We need to win first. But I think it would be almost impossible, particularly in the House, to slow down the calls for impeachment if they do take control of the chamber.
Yeah, it just makes everything come this November that much more important. Politico's Anna Palmer in Washington, D.C. Thank you very much, Anna. Appreciate it.
Thanks.
All right, settling the books while prosecutors say Paul Manafort was racking up a tab on landscaping and fancy cars. His bookkeeper says he was actually in the hole. How he managed to stay afloat and why this fits into the case being made against him. And Mideast peace plan. A new report says Jared Kushner seems ready to roll out his long-awaited peace plan for the Middle East. The problem is no one seems to know what's actually in it.
Fact is, there are over 9,600 roads named Park in the U.S. It's America's most popular street name, but all state agents know that's where the similarity stops. If you're on Park Street in Reno, Nevada, the high winds of the Washoe and Zephyr could damage your sighting. That's very different than living on Park Avenue in Sheboygan, Wisconsin, where ice dams could cause water damage. But no matter what park you live on, one of 10,000 local Allstate agents knows yours. Now that you know the truth, are you in good hands?
For every home project, HomeAdvisor finds trusted local pros. For every pro, you can read customer reviews. And for everybody's busy schedule, you can book appointments online. For every project, you have HomeAdvisor. Go to HomeAdvisor.com.
Falls are the #1 cause of injury to senior citizens. Acorn Stair Lifts has a solution. Just don't fall. Sit, relax, ride with an Acorn Stair Lift, the world's leader in stair lifts. Don't let limited mobility keep you from going up and down your stairs, even outside. Call Acorn Stair Lifts now for a free information kit and no obligation quote. Why risk falling when you could safely ride?
Our Acorn Stair Lift is definitely more affordable than moving.
The Acorn Stair Lift has a padded seat and backrest, safety sensors, stop the chair if there are obstacles. The seat swivels and locks so you don't twist your body. And the Acorn stairlift pulls away. It even works through a power shortage.
I was really surprised at how little they cost.
Call 1-800-339-8289 right now for your free information kit, or visit our website today. Call 1-800-339-8289.
At Wayfair.com, we think that when the big stuff ships free, it's just better.
Cover better, brunch better, crunch better, rock better, roll better, dream better, clean better. Yeah, better!
Oh, Wayfair has free shipping. Game changer.
Fast better, free better, everything's better when it's
Free shipping on orders over $49. Shop better at Wayfair.com.
Wayfair, you've got just what I need.
Alright, Trivago. Find me a hotel somewhere in Mexico where I can wake up with a view of the ocean. Oh, awesome. And what about a pool for me and my friends? Okay, we have to do some sailing too. Wait a minute. What about a hiking trail? Oh, and a massage. A nice restaurant. In Trivago, my friends love to party. Yes, this is my ideal hotel. Thanks, Trivago.
Your brain changes as you get older, but Prevagen helps your brain with an ingredient originally discovered in jellyfish. In clinical trials, Prevagen has been shown to improve short-term memory. Prevagen, healthier brain, better life.
Welcome back, everyone. Day 4 of former Trump campaign chairman Paul Manafort's bank and tax fraud trial in Virginia. Prosecutors have been methodically poring over Manafort's books and financials with his former accountants. They testified he used foreign accounts to pay for his lavish lifestyle. NBC's national security and justice reporter Julia Ainsley has been following the trial for us. She joins me now live from outside the courthouse. Julia, great to have you with us. Thanks for stepping out for us. Bring us up to speed on all of today's testimonies and developments. What have you seen?
So, Eamon, today is not as sexy and flashy as the ostrich and python jackets we've seen in the previous days of this trial. We're really going through kind of the meat and potatoes of the prosecution's case here. They've been examining, and now they're cross-examining. The defense is cross-examining this man named Philip Aleph, who prepared the tax documents for Paul Manafort's business as well as his personal household with him and his wife. And what we're hearing is that Philip Aleph was actually not only misinformed, he was never told of foreign bank accounts like those that Paul Manafort set up in Cyprus. He was also asked to lie. We got to see emails that Paul Manafort sent to Mr. Aleph saying, "You're going to be contacted by these people at USB, as presumably to get a loan. Tell them that this property my wife and I have in New York is our personal residence, and it is not a rental, that it's not business related." And he said flat out, that's not how I understand it, and I'm not going to tell them that. But it was clear at this point in Paul Manafort's journey, when the things had really fallen out economically for him around 2015, 2016, he was getting to a desperate point, and that is the case that the prosecution is making. He is a desperate person who would have done a lot in order to keep living that lavish lifestyle.
All right, so let me pick up on that point, because that's a very important point in this trial, because we learned from testimony from his bookkeeper that Manafort, as you said, was in dire financial straits by the time the 2016 presidential campaign rolled around and he joined the Trump team. What's the significance of that information?
It's really significant. I mean, one thing we keep saying, well, we're not going to hear the words Donald Trump or Russia come up in this case, but there's a narrative that's being laid out here of a man who the president did hire to be his campaign manager, and he was someone in such dire straits, yet he made the odd decision to be a campaign manager totally for free. And when he was making decisions like he was in the summer of 2016 to do a pro-Russia platform at the Republican nominating convention, why was he feeling compelled in that way if he wasn't getting paid anything from Trump? That might not be something we get a lot of answers to in this trial, Eamon, but it's something that we'll certainly be digging into, and we'll be seeing how Mueller might use those pieces going forward. And it certainly would explain why Mueller wants to put so much pressure on Paul Manafort to flip.
So there's been obviously a lot of speculation about the role of Manafort's former right-hand man, Rick Gates, and what role he is expected to play in this trial. He's already pleaded guilty. What can we expect to see from him when he takes the witness stand?
So, right, and I'm glad you pointed that out, because at first it seemed like it was a question of whether or not Rick Gates would testify. But we heard yesterday from the prosecution that they have every intention to bring him forward. I was talking to some lawyers who said we should probably expect him kind of in the middle of the chain of witnesses, because he is someone whose behavior has been called into question. We learned today he also signed off on a lot of those fraudulent tax reforms, or at least gave his permission to use those fraudulent numbers. Because of the question of his character, they kind of want to put him in the middle so that he's not the one sealing up the case when the jurors go to make their deliberations, so he won't be as fresh in their memory. But of course, Rick Gates worked hand in hand with Manafort through all of these things. He knows about the bank accounts. He knows about his work in Ukraine. He even went further in the Trump administration and worked on the transition. So there's a lot we're going to want to hear from Rick Gates, and I think that will be perhaps one of the most interesting days of this trial.
But certainly, very quickly, Julie, do you know what day he could possibly take the stand?
We don't know. I mean, almost every day we walk in, we're not exactly sure who they will call. There's a long list of potential witnesses that the prosecution will call. What we do know is that the prosecution thinks that they can rest sometime next week, which makes me think we should be on the lookout, especially early next week.
Indeed. All right, Julia Ainsley, thank you very much. Appreciate it. All right, so the White House getting ready to roll out a Middle East peace plan, believe it or not, with the president's son-in-law leading the charge. But just months after a controversial embassy move, can they get the results they're actually looking for? Then a week from Sunday marks the one-year anniversary of the deadly clash between protesters and white nationalists in Charlottesville. That day, MSNBC will share the story of a former white supremacist who has dedicated his life to reforming others. Watch Breaking Hate Sunday, August 12th at 9 p.m. Eastern, right here on MSNBC.
It felt great not having hepatitis C. It's like a load off my shoulders. I was just excited for it to be over.
Harvoni is a revolutionary treatment for the most common type of chronic hepatitis C. It's been prescribed to more than 250,000 people and is proven to cure up to 99% of patients who've had no prior treatment with 12 weeks. Certain patients can be cured with just 8 weeks of Harvoni. Before starting Harvoni, your doctor will test to see if you've ever had hepatitis B, which may flare up and cause serious liver problems during and after Harvoni treatment. Tell your doctor if you've ever had hepatitis B, a liver transplant, other liver or kidney problems, HIV, or any other medical conditions, and about all the medicines you take, including herbal supplements. Taking amiodarone with Harvoni can cause a serious slowing of your heart rate. Common side effects of Harvoni include tiredness, headache, and weakness.
Ready to let go of Hep C?
Ask your Hep C specialist about Harvoni.
Hey there, people eligible for Medicare. Give me 2 minutes, and I'll tell you some important things to know about Medicare. First, it doesn't pay for everything. Say this pizza is your Part B medical expenses. This much, about 80%, Medicare will pay for. What's left, this slice here, well, that's on you. And that's where an AARP Medicare Supplement Insurance Plan, insured by United Healthcare Insurance Company, comes in. This type of plan helps pay some of what Medicare doesn't. And these are the only plans to carry the AARP endorsement. That's because they meet their high standards of quality and service. Want to learn more? It's easy. Call United Healthcare Insurance Company now and ask for this free decision guide. Inside, you'll find the range of AARP Medicare supplement plans and their rates. Apply anytime, too. Oh, speaking of time, about a little over halfway, and there's more to tell. Like how with this type of plan, you'll have the freedom to choose any doctor who accepts Medicare patients. Great for staying with the one you know, or finding somebody new, like a specialist. There are no networks and no referrals needed. None. And when you travel, your plan will go with you, anywhere in the country. So, if you're in another state visiting the grandkids, stay a while, enjoy, and know that you'll still be able to see any doctor who accepts Medicare patients. So call United Healthcare today. They are committed to being there for you. Tick, tick, tick. Time for a wrap-up. A Medicare supplement plan helps pay some of what Medicare doesn't. You know, the pizza slice. It allows you to choose any doctor who accepts Medicare patients. And these are the only plans of their kind endorsed by AARP. Phew. Call United Healthcare today and ask for this free decision guide.
How do you win at business? Stay at La Quinta, where we're changing with stylish makeovers. Then, at your next meeting, set your seat height to its maximum level. Bravo, tall meeting man. Start winning today. Book now at lq.com.
There's a common thread I see every time I'm in the field. While this is burning you, we're saving other homes. Neighbors helping neighbors, and strangers alike.
This is what America's about.
Sometimes it's nice to see all the good that's out there. Bringing folks out, we have seen it in community after community.
A new report suggests there could finally be some movement on Jared Kushner's #1 job at the White House, bringing peace to the Middle East. The Associated Press reports that Trump administration is staffing up its Middle East team for the peace plan rollout. It says, in part, Trump officials have long promised the most comprehensive package ever put forward toward resolving the conflict. The emerging plan has not been described with even a small amount of detail. Joining me now is senior fellow at the Council for Foreign Relations, Gail Lemon, and I want to bring back NBC News national political reporter Jonathan Allen. Jonathan, let me begin with you. This is the first sign in months that the plan is going anywhere. How seriously do you sense this administration is taking this task?
It's a big issue for the president. You know, I go to rallies across the country, his political rallies across the country, and one of the most consistent and loudest applause lines is when he talks about moving the U.S. Embassy in Israel to Jerusalem. It's something that, you know, he promised folks he would do, and he did it. So that's something, and he sees that as part of this larger peace plan. It's something that's politically important to his base, particularly evangelical Christian voters, for a couple of reasons. I think what the problem is here is that you've got some negotiators in this who have not been dealing with these issues for very long. You've got some negotiators in this who are seen as, in the Middle East, as extremely pro-Israel and in some cases potentially anti-Muslim. The president himself obviously had the travel ban, the first couple versions of which were struck down by the court because they were seen as being religious. So, you know, there's a lot to be done here. It was easier to part the Red Sea than to get peace in the Middle East.
Gil, the AP is writing that Palestinian leaders, in part for the reason that Jonathan just mentioned there, they're going to be very hostile towards any proposal from the Trump administration, given his decision to move the embassy to Jerusalem from Tel Aviv. Is there anything that is going to allow this administration to work through a serious peace plan if the Palestinians have already pretty much said anything that arrives with Jerusalem as the capital of Israel is dead in the water?
Well, look, I mean, we've always talked about how the Middle East peace plan is the graveyard of optimism, but it also is a hope of pragmatism, right? So the Trump administration seems to be thinking maybe we can use economic development and dollars to really shake up a stagnant status quo. There are a lot of folks on all sides who would say, look, you have absolutely no chance. And in some ways, this plan benefits from the real reality of very low expectations. But the question really is, can you break through what has been a really frozen status quo, and can you use dollars and development to do so?
Yeah, and as someone who has covered the Middle East, I know that so much of the details, or the devil, I should say, is in the details of these issues. Yes. Sometimes it comes down to block-by-block maps, and I feel like the president sometimes is approaching this from a general perspective in terms of trying to be pragmatic with the financial incentives to the Palestinians. Is that going to work? Is there any sense of realism that the Palestinians could be simply offered a big chunk of change to win over their concessions?
Well, I think it's really, is that the start, right? Can you start with economics? Can you start with development? Look, I mean, you know this, I mean, there's so many people, you talk to them, and what they want is the chance to send their kids to school, the chance to be able to know that their children will come home, and the chance to have a better future. And if you can break through a frozen political process and a really zero-sum game until now, and say, listen, there is a shot, right? We will use some kind of economic mechanisms to help with day-to-day life, and then we can go back to the harder political issues, then perhaps you have a shot. I mean, I think Washington right now really does think there's no chance, and I do think this plan benefits, actually, from those very low expectations. But there is a possibility for people on the ground that pragmatism may carry the day in terms of the economics over politics.
Hey, Jonathan, the Israel issue has always been a bipartisan issue on Capitol Hill. Has it become more politicized with this president, with the decisions he's made about Jerusalem? And can that come back and bite the president or haunt the president and the GOP in the way the support for this particular Israeli government has become so one-sided?
Well, I mean, it's not just the president. This is also something that has been sort of a fraud issue on the Democratic side. If anything, I would say Republicans are very unified in being pro-Israel. You've got the sort of globalist wing of the Republican Party, establishment wing that's always been there. You've got the evangelical Christians that feel that way. I mean, there are millions and millions of voters across this country who are not Jewish but are very, very pro-Israel. So the Republican Party has been very, very unified behind President Trump on this. On the Democratic side, what you've seen is an erosion of support for hawkish pro-Israel policies over time, and that that ranges from people who are more in favor of the Palestinians than they are of the Israelis to people who believe that Israel's best path is a more dovish path and consider themselves pro-Israel but less hawkish. The Democratic Party is very frayed on this right now.
Gail, I know that you're in touch with a lot of diplomats and others overseas. What should we expect the reaction of this plan to be, both in the Middle East and among our European allies, who at some points have taken very different positions on issues like the embassy move to Jerusalem?
Well, I think there are two things to watch, and I think four letters are overshadowing this whole discussion, which is Iran, right? So as much as this is about a Middle East peace process, if you talk about what the Gulf states plus Egypt plus Israel have been allied upon recently, what they've really come together on is the concern about growing Iranian influence in the region. And in many ways, that has overshadowed what has been going on with the Palestinian people and the question of the Palestinian people's future. And so the question I have is, how will the Gulf states react? Do they really see, do we see a desire for them to open their wallets? Because somebody will have to pay for this economic development and infrastructure. And then if you have the Gulf states on board, and if you have something that the Palestinian people can get behind, I do believe Europe will follow on this. But really, the question, I think, is how does this affect the Iran discussion, and how do the Gulf states come out?
So to that point, Jonathan, politically speaking, does it make sense for a president who's been somewhat challenged on the foreign policy side, doesn't have a lot of successes? I mean, he'll argue that he has a lot of successes with North Korea and Russia, but now you have the JCPOA being torn up, as Gail was mentioning. Does it make sense for the president to release this plan or announce this plan before the midterms, or wait post-midterms?
I think it makes sense for him to announce it before the midterms, particularly if it's one that, as expected, is sort of weighted toward Israel, because it so motivates his base.
All right, Gail, Jonathan, thank you both very much. Sure, we'll be talking about this a lot more. We'll be right back, everyone.
I'm Ray, and I quit smoking with Chantix. I tried cold turkey, I tried the patch, they didn't work for me. I didn't think anything was going to work for me until I tried Chantix.
Chantix, along with support, helps you quit smoking.
Chantix reduced my urge to smoke. I needed that to quit.
When you try to quit smoking, with or without Chantix, you may have nicotine withdrawal symptoms. Some people have changes in behavior or thinking, aggression, hostility, agitation, depressed mood, or suicidal thoughts or actions with Chantix. Serious side effects may include seizures, new or worse heart or blood vessel problems, sleepwalking, or allergic and skin reactions, which can be life-threatening. Stop Chantix and get help right away if you have any of these. Tell your healthcare provider if you've had depression or other mental health problems. Decrease alcohol use while taking Chantix. Use caution when driving or operating machinery. The most common side effect is nausea.
I can't tell you how good it feels to have smoke behind me.
Talk to your doctor about Chantix.
So you have your headphones, chair, your new laptop, 24/7 tech support.
Yep, thank
James does. I think he might need some support.
Start them off right with the school supplies they need at low prices all summer long. Save $200 on this Dell laptop at Office Depot Office Max.
Do you have a life insurance policy you no longer need or can't afford? Now you can sell your policy for an immediate payment.
We bought life insurance when our kids were young to protect their future.
Our youngest just turned 40. We no longer needed the coverage.
That got us to thinking about letting our policy go. So I did some research and called Coventry Direct. I learned that you could sell all or part of a life insurance policy, even a term life policy. Turns out, people have been selling policies like ours for the past 15 years. Who knew? We sold our policy. Now we have money to help with the medical bills.
And to add to our retirement.
If you have $100,000 or more of life insurance, you may be a candidate to sell your policy. Call 1-800-461-2600 or visit CoventryDirect.com. 1-800-461-2600. Coventry Direct, redefining insurance.
Your hair's so soft. Did you use Head & Shoulders 2-in-1?
I did, Mom. Want to try it? Yes. It intensely moisturizes your hair and scalp and keeps you flake-free.
Manolo, look at my soft hair. I should be in the shot now, too. Try Head & Shoulders 2-in-1.
When it comes to making perfect boil, it's all about choice. Like our choice to citrus marinate only fresh, never frozen chicken, our choice to always grill it slow over an open flame, and of course, our choice to never compromise. But now, the choice is all yours. Bring home a family choice dinner today with your choice of bacon avocado or avocado mango salad, 8 pieces of our famous fire grilled chicken, and 2 delicious sides, all for just $20. El Pollo Loco, fresh from the grill.
When did work become more like play? I mean, come on, that's not even an office. Okay, I want his job. Work is changing, and Spectrum is ready for it. Because change moves business forward. Spectrum has invested billions creating a secure, reliable network to power your business, today and tomorrow. Spectrum, think forward.
All right, that wraps up this hour of MSNBC Live. My good friend Katie Turr joins me and takes over right now.
Do you know what today is?
Friday.
Fishy Friday.
Fishy Friday. What does that mean?
I'm wearing my fish earrings.
Oh, nice. Okay.
Oh, just thought it'd be
fun. I forgot
fun.
my fishy.
Thought it'd be fun. Alliteration. Alliteration. Thought I almost called you Ari. Amen.
A lot of people have called me Ari. It's not the first time, actually.
Amen. Thank you very much. Good
You're
to
welcome.
see you.
Good to see you, Katie. Good luck.
It's 11 a.m. out west and 2 p.m. in the east. This hour on MSNBC, the president is at odds with his top intelligence officials. Just hours after DNI Director Dan Coates, FBI Director Christopher Wray, Director of Homeland Security Kirstjen Nielsen, National Security Advisor John Bolton, and the head of U.S. Cyber Command and Director of the NSA, General Paul Nakasone, each delivered stark warnings about ongoing election interference. Donald Trump was on stage at a rally in Pennsylvania, calling the entire investigation into Russia's effort to attack our elections a hoax.
In Helsinki, I had a great meeting with Putin. We discussed everything. I had a great meeting.
As I have said consistently, Russia attempted to interfere with the last election and continues to engage in malign influence operations to this day.
But I got along great with Putin. And everybody said, wow, that was great.
The Russians are looking for every opportunity, regardless of party, regardless of whether or not it applies to the election, to continue their pervasive efforts to undermine our fundamental values.
Now we're being hindered by the Russian hoax. It's a hoax.
Our democracy itself is in the crosshairs.
If I get along with Vladimir Putin, that's a good thing, folks.
Before a boisterous crowd of supporters, Donald Trump painted the probe as an attack on him and his administration and claimed the inquiry was making it harder for him to get along with Russia, as you just heard. All while suggesting he has been so tough on Moscow that they did not actually want him to win the 2016 election.
President Putin, did you want President Trump to win the election, and did you direct any of your officials to help him do that?
Да, я хотел, чтобы он выиграл. Yes, I did. Yes, I did. Because he talked about bringing the U.S.-Russia relationship back to normal.
Don't mistake it, that is the President of the United States telling you not to believe what you see with your eyes or hear with your ears. It is almost as if there are two administrations, one led by grown-ups who are trying to protect our nation and our democracy, and the other led by a man who wants to be best buds with our attacker. So the big question we're asking today is, can our intelligence agencies keep our elections safe without the president's help? Joining me, NBC News national intelligence and national security reporter Ken Delaney, and White House reporter for the Associated Press, Jonathan Lemire, chief White House correspondent for the New York Times, Peter Baker. They're both MSNBC analysts. And politics reporter for the Daily Beast, Betsy Woodruff. Betsy is also an MSNBC contributor. Guys, welcome. I do want to start with Anna Schechter first because she has some breaking news to bring us on the SDNY investigation. Anna, I'm sorry I didn't introduce you a moment ago, but you're also one of our reporters here at NBC. Can you tell us what exactly you've learned?
Well, Kristen Davis on Wednesday met with Robert Mueller's team.
Who is Kristen Davis?
Kristen Davis is the Manhattan Madam. You'll remember back when Elliot Spitzer went down, she claimed that she had provided prostitutes to him and became instantly famous. He has denied that. But she spent 4 months at Rikers Island, and I actually met her right when she came out of Rikers Island. And she was doing interviews at the time. She wound up running for mayor, so she's quite a character. She's been working with Roger Stone for years, on and off, on his political campaigns, on her political campaigns. She's done web work for him, and so Robert Mueller wants to talk to her probably about finances and following the money.
I'm sorry, I misspoke earlier. I meant Robert Mueller, but I said SDNY. So many investigations to keep track of. How does she tie in to Donald Trump? Other than Roger Stone, are they looking at anything specifically, any way that she could have been involved in a back channel potentially? I know when Mueller's investigators and prosecutors are questioning witnesses, part of the line of questioning is, what role did Roger Stone play? Was he really an advisor, or was he an informal, or was he really not a part of the campaign because he quit very early on or was fired, depending on who you talk to? Or was he an informal advisor? Did he maintain that role in an unofficial capacity after that?
Well, Robert Mueller right now is really building his case against Roger Stone. That's what we're seeing, and it's sounding like they might be convening a grand jury looking specifically at him. Maybe there are other unrelated charges that they're putting pressure on Roger Stone for other crimes that he might have committed. We really don't know. But what we do know is that he said publicly that he had reached out to WikiLeaks, that he was in touch with WikiLeaks. He's not named, but he is certainly a person in Robert Mueller's other indictment where he laid out this elaborate plan by Russian operatives to interfere with the election. So he is central to Mueller's case. And Kristen Davis, a longtime associate, very close friend. Roger Stone's actually godfather to her only son. So they have a very close relationship. So it's not surprising that Mueller wants to talk to her.
Where does the investigation stand so far as we know with Mueller's team? There's been a lot of talk about maybe it wrapping up or it taking a little bit longer. There's no real answer to that right now. Do you have any idea?
Well, we're thinking maybe this is going to wrap up by Labor Day, but we're not sure. I think either he does wrap it up and lay out charges by Labor Day, but we really don't know.
We do want to get a legal question into one of our MSNBC legal reporters, Danny Savalas, who is just joining us now. We rushed Danny to the set for this breaking news, so bear with us. Danny, interviewing Kristen Davis, give us your insight.
To the extent Kristen Davis is known as the Manhattan Madam, that shouldn't distract from what's really interesting to the special counsel about her, is that she worked closely with Roger Stone on and off for about 10 years or so, over the span of that amount of time. So to the extent she was involved, and it's been reported that she was involved in the web, maybe possibly web management or internet web page management or some form of accounting, those are all areas that an investigator would find very interesting because she might know or have seen data or other information that is interesting to the special counsel.
Can I just jump in here? Her son was born in September 2016, and so her defense in terms of getting involved in all of this in collusion and this investigation of collusion, she's saying, look, I was heavily pregnant. I was not working for Roger Stone at this exact time, so I don't know anything about Russian collusion. I think what she's more worried about is trying to get him on following the money because she did work closely with him.
Exactly.
So this points more to Roger Stone and what role Roger Stone was playing.
Sure, we've already seen through the Manafort trial that the special counsel is not beyond. He will not limit himself just to the Russia collusion investigation. Manafort's trial has virtually nothing to do with the Russia investigation other than it spawned from that investigation. And in fact, that was one of the grounds that Manafort tried to have that trial, that case against him, dismissed on. So it is true that that the special counsel is not above branching out beyond just Russia collusion in the election.
And Roger Stone, as far as I know at the moment, has not been interviewed by the special counsel. Is that correct, or has he been interviewed in the last couple months and has it not been reported?
My understanding is that they're closing in on him. So it was Miller and Sam Nunberg and Kristen Davis, and we're waiting.
We're waiting. Got it.
But they may not interview him at all if they perceive him or they classify him as a target. Now, to be fair, that's a very fluid definition. Anyone at the DOJ will tell you that it's a very informal term, but it's something defense attorneys always want to know, whether you're target, subject, or witness. But if he is a target and they think that he may be charged with something, it's possible they may never ask him to testify.
Anna Schechter, Danny Savalos, thank you very much for rushing in and sorting this out with us. We appreciate it. Let's go back to our top story. Donald Trump at odds with his intelligence agencies. And our big question, can our intelligence agencies keep our election safe without the president's help? Back with me after that brief interlude, Ken Delaney and Jonathan Lemire, Peter Baker, and Betsy Woodruff. I do want to start with you, Jonathan. The president yesterday, we were told by Sarah Huckabee Sanders, was the one who told his intelligence chiefs to take the podium at the White House briefing and make those announcements. It's kind of hard to swallow that he did that if he's only hours later going to be standing on a stage in Pennsylvania and decrying the whole thing as a hoax.
And it certainly flies in the face of what we've seen from this president before. He has repeatedly belittled the accusation that Russia interfered with the 2016 election. He was given a chance in Helsinki to denounce Putin and to tell him never to do it again. He chose not to. I was at the rally last night in Pennsylvania, in which he was one that was defined by his screeds against the media, mostly for our negative, in his estimation, coverage of his administration. But yes, he made no mention, despite the well-orchestrated show of force by his top officials at the White House briefing room earlier that day to warn against election interference going forward. The president made no such mention of that, except for, in that clip you played earlier, to downplay it, to suggest that it wasn't a real thing, to say even that it was hindering the United States' ability to get along with Moscow. And we certainly know that he has time and time again suggested he wants to have a better relationship with Vladimir Putin, and he wants to have a better relationship between the United States and Russia.
Peter, explain what the significance of the disconnect is. If the President of the United States is not publicly backing up with what his intel chiefs say, what happens?
Well, it does matter. Look, Vladimir Putin hears the difference between the President of the United States and the people underneath him, and he takes that seriously. I was in Moscow for 4 years. I remember interviewing Vladimir Putin, and the thing that he always took even then was the distinction between what a president says and what the administration around him says. Here he's getting a disconnect unlike any we've ever seen, in which a president seems to be on one page very different than the rest of government. That's why President Putin was eager to see him in Helsinki, to get past the people that he thinks are trying to hold Trump back from having a better relationship, to cut through that resistance in effect, if you will, from the likes of the Secretary of State and the National Security Advisor and others, so that he can forward a direct relationship with President Trump. What is the first thing that they do? They two of them go into a room together without any of those people around them who President Putin sees as stopping President Trump from having this better relationship. So this disconnect, this two-tier message, in effect, is very significant in terms of the relationship, because that's the way it's heard in Moscow.
And Ken, yesterday the intel chiefs seemed bullish on their ability to protect the upcoming elections, even though they couldn't confirm with 100% certainty that they would be able to. Privately, though, what are you hearing about the disconnect between the president and intel?
Great frustration, Katie. I mean, look, there are things that each of these agencies can do and are doing to combat foreign election interference. The FBI has a role, the National Security Agency has a role, DHS has a role, and they're doing what they can. But there are certain things that cannot be done without presidential authorization. One of them, for example, Paul Nakasone, the head of the National Security Agency, made reference to yesterday. He was asked, does he have explicit authorization from President Trump to take action in cyberspace, to use the cyber weapon